Okay, hey everybody, so welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've done anything with the Jeep, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is I was waiting on some stuff to get back in stock, which has arrived for the bodywork and the primer, and the other is it's just miserably hot here in the south. So I have AC in this garage, but it just can't seem to keep up. So, but as you can see, I've got some sanding done on it. On the driver's side here up front, done a little sanding here. I've taken the grill, the bumper, headlights, everything off the front, done some sanding up here. But all of that was in preparation for this. So this is the Eastwood roller OptiFlow primer system. And so what it comes with is you got a gallon of the epoxy primer, gallon of the catalyst for the epoxy primer. So that's a 1-to-1. So that'll give me 2 gallons of a rollable primer. And so they have everything over here in this kit that's going to allow me to roll that primer on versus spray it. Now, why would I want to roll versus spray? So on the Bronco here, I did this one in my garage when I was back up in Maryland, and I sprayed the primer, and it was just such a messy process. I mean, sanding alone on this is just creating all kinds of dust in the garage, but spraying in a garage, in a booth that's not set up for it, right, in a makeshift booth, it's just such a messy proposition, right? You get stuff all over you. My air compressor's still filthy, my hoses, all that stuff, and it's so hard to clean that paint off of there. And so I've seen people have good results with this, so I wanted to give it a try. And so I got their full kit that has everything. Like I said, we've already looked at the epoxy primer. That's gonna be 2 gallons of that. And it's gonna have this urethane primer to go on over that after I do the body work. But what it also comes with for the hard to reach areas is this 2K high build urethane primer that it mixes the 2 parts in the can. So the catalyst is in there with the primer. You puncture the bottom here, actually you pop that bottom and it punctures the can within the can that allows you to mix that 2-part primer in there and spray. Just like if it was coming out of a gun or out of this mixed roller kit. I think, do I have, yeah, so you have the epoxy too. So you have sprayable epoxy and urethane primer. And then you've got the guide coats here that they send with it. They send these DuraBlocks as part of the kit, but what I went ahead and did is upgrade to these dustless systems that they have here. So I've got this and I've got more of the I don't know if we can see them down in there, but I bought several of these dustless blocks, and so basically what it does is, let's see if we can pop this open real quick. Okay, so pop that open, and basically what it does is it has all of these holes in the block and in the paper itself. I don't see, let's see if we have a paper that's already open. Yeah, you can't really see it there. But just trust me, there's holes in the paper that correspond with these holes in the block. And you hook your vacuum cleaner to the back of this, and it just sucks the dust away as you sand. And so, I don't know if any of you have ever done bodywork and block sanding, but my God, it's a tedious and messy process. And so, I'm trying to cut down the mess on this one as much as possible. And so that's why I went with the roller and the contour blocks, because I'm trying to keep this garage as clean as possible, because once that stuff gets in here, man, it's everywhere and it's hard to get rid of. And so I'm gonna continue sanding on this. I've got my DA sander that I've been using. So I've had this one that I've hit with 80 and 180 grit on here, and I've got it down. You can see I'm popping through metal. That's why I went with that epoxy primer, because once you go down to bare metal, you want something to get on that bare metal, and the epoxy primer is what you're looking for to seal and contain that bare metal. And so as I pulled everything off, you can see back here, I haven't gotten to this, but this is the wood grain vinyl stickers that were on here. And I'm debating whether I'm gonna go back to that setup or not, but still tons more sanding to do. But now that I have the material here, I can really start going on this without fear, because my fear was popping into bare metal and leaving too much bare metal exposed on this as I was waiting for that to come in and rust developing and everything like that. So now that it's here, I can start sanding with some intent and hopefully get this rolled on this weekend. I'm trying to. And so the cool thing about it though is you can do it in batches, and so you can mix up a quart of it if you've just got the hood and the fenders and everything done, and roll it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I've got the doors here that I've already done a little bit of work to. Those ones I did pop through a ton of metal, so I sprayed some primer on those already. But there's still tons more work to be done, right? This is kind of a never-ending process. So the plan will be sand, throw this in the epoxy primer, bodywork, urethane primer, bodywork, and then hopefully get it into paint. I'll probably wait until it cools way down. I'm looking for maybe shooting in the fall, hopefully. But there's tons of work to be done between now and then. So it could take me very well into the early winter. But luckily we're in the south, so it shouldn't be too brutal. But yeah, so with that, let's go ahead and get into the sanding. Probably won't be too much footage of the sanding because it's just the same thing over and over again for 100 hours. But what I am interested to show you guys is how that epoxy primer rolls on. And so a little bit of sanding, but then we'll get right into the epoxy primer. So here we go. Okay, so as we get into this, we're gonna go ahead and remember that we gotta get a Ziploc baggie. We're gonna be pulling body panels and stuff off. So make sure you have that Ziploc bag as you're pulling all the screws and hardware off this thing. Gotta remove these back panels here so we can sand the tailgate. We're gonna go ahead and put those to the side, but we'll get them polished up later before we throw them back on. And as you're taking these off, like I said, I'm showing these to the camera so I remember which screws go where as I throw them into this bag, because we're gonna be taking these back panels off here as well as the roof rack, and I'm gonna throw them all in the same bag. Up here on the roof rack, you have these slats that run across for bracing of the roof, but then the main portion here is held on by these 6 bolts along the roof rack here. So we're going to pull those off from both sides, remove the roof rack, get it out of the way, and then pull those slats off. So luckily nothing was rusted on. It all came off very, very simply. And so I was able to get that off, you know, maybe 5 minutes to get everything pulled off. But again, showing the camera the bolts so I remember down the line which ones are going to go where. And so I've talked about these before, but I have the vehicle on these movable dollies, and they are just such a game changer. They allow you to move the vehicle, you know, into the space that you need it to work. And so again, I highly recommend those. I got mine at Harbor Freight, and well worth, I think they were $400, well worth the money. So as we're pulling the roof rack off here, it came off, not the sturdiest roof rack in the world. I think, you know, I might, if I put a roof rack on, replace it with something a little more sturdy. But that left me with those bracing rails across. And again, those were just quick. I think they were 4 screws each. Pull those out of the way. And then as you get those off, so those don't get lost, I'm going to go ahead and tape those together. Just take some quick painter's tape, zip them together, and then zip that to the rest of the roof rack, just so I don't have to go hunting for those down the line. Trying to figure out where I put those. So I'll hang that up on the garage on the side somewhere once I get this out of the way. But from there, now it's just the sanding, right? I'm going to start by blowing the roof off because there was a bunch of debris underneath those rails. Blow that off and throw the 180 grit sandpaper on. And then just, again, it's just going and working through, really concentrating on the rust spots. Minimal rust on the roof. There was a couple places where underneath some of those rails some water had sat. And in the beads that were rolled into the roof for some of the rigidity, some water gotten down in there, but nothing that went through and nothing that was too serious. And so you can see as I pull it up here, might be a little hard to tell, but there's a difference, certainly in feel between those two sides. You can see the rust, kind of the surface rust over on that other side. So I end up taking care of the rest of the roof before moving on to these doors. And so again, pulling all the hardware off, I have that. I'm going to put it in a bag and put it to the side so I remember where everything's at. Pulling out my sandpaper here, and this one is going to be a little different because this one has the vinyl. So that what you're seeing right there that I'm sanding on is the remnants of the vinyl sticker that was the vinyl wood paneling. So that took a little bit of elbow grease to get off, and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I kept working my way through it. And some of the places where it had peeled off previously had peeled some paint with it, so I had to go at this one a little bit harder, get some rust spots that were created by that paint popping off. But all in all, not too bad. Nothing too serious here. You see me blow it off, realize that I didn't quite get everything that I need to get right there by feel, so we're going to have to go back through and do some more sanding on it. And again, that's just part of this process, right? You sand, you feel, you sand, you feel. And bodywork, man, I remember the first time I got a quote for bodywork on one of my vehicles, and the guy told me we'd start at 10,000 and then go from there. And I thought he was crazy, but now I completely understand it. Now we see me working on here is I'm grinding on some of these holes in the body that were there for some of the trim panels, and I'm trying to weld them up. But what I figured out very quickly is that this is a very thin gauge steel and very difficult for me to get a good weld on. And so this is the only panel I end up doing this on, but I'm able to get, since the holes welded up, and then I'm going to go back through with the grinder and smooth everything down before throwing some primer on it, just because I'm through bare metal and these are going to sit for a while before I get a chance to throw the rest of the primer on. So this was the only panel I did this on. Like I said, it ended up being way more of a hassle than it was worth, because I think those tiny holes I can go ahead and fill with body filler. Okay, so today's the day we're going to try to get some primer on the Jeep. So as you can see, I've got it sanded down, popped through a bunch of places. We got bare metal exposed, so that's why we're going to go with the epoxy primer first. See if we can get through here and just do a good walk around of where we're at. Hopefully that fan noise isn't too aggressive. So, able to do a lot of good sanding up through the top there, door jambs, fenders, took the grill apart, vacuumed all that out. There was a bunch of nasty years and years of debris down in there, so we got that all vacuumed out after pulling this grill off. We got the front end done here. So all in all, like I said, there were a lot of places we popped through to bare metal. And so the epoxy primer is going to be up first. What I still have yet to do is get this hood down. I don't see too many problems on here, so it should just take a quick run over with 100 grit sandpaper. It was sitting out back, so it's all nasty. We'll get that all cleaned up, and the sanding will take care of that. And then I'm going to hit these doors again with the 100 grit to get this primer that I put on here just as a, safety measure, because there was so much bare metal on these, and I did these a while ago, so I just put some primer on it just to keep it from getting any moisture or any rust developing. So I'll knock that layer down, and then we'll be ready to do the epoxy, the roll on. So let me do some sanding on this hood and these, and then we'll get going. So I'm going after this hood with 100 grit here, and the hood's in really good shape. Other than being dirty from being on the ground, it's what looked like rust there. There's almost no rust on this hood, but what there is a ton of is oxidization and kind of flaking paint. So that was my big goal here. You got to get everything off and down to a smooth, even surface. And so in doing that, you're going to pop through to metal a few places, especially with 100 grit. And so, just trying to get it down and take my time. I want to say in real time, I think maybe 8 minutes total it took me to sand this hood. You blow it off just like we did on the other panels, right? It's sand it down, blow it off, check your progress, sand it down, blow it off, check your progress, and just keep going until you got a nice smooth, even surface ready to receive your primer. Just like everything, prep work is going to determine the final product, right? So this is only going to be as smooth as your substrate. I mean, you can pile all the filler in the world you want on and smooth it out eventually, I guess, but I think a little bit of extra time here to get everything nice and smooth and even will pay dividends and kind of mitigate some of the work down the line. And so again, real time, 8 minutes, so not too much. And then we're going to go here with the wax and grease remover and just rub everything down. And you're going to do this to every panel you're going to paint. I think I only show it on the hood here, but you go through and just try to get everything off this that's a foreign debris to give the epoxy the best chance to adhering to the metal and the prep surface. And so you saw how filthy that rag was. So once you get everything wiped down and ready to go, you're going to mix it. And again, this is a 1-to-1 ratio for this epoxy primer. So 1 part primer, 1 part reducer. And they provide you with the rollers and the tray liner. So you see me getting the tray liner ready to go, getting my rollers all lined up. You want to have everything ready to go before you mix anything, because you don't want to be wasting time, because this stuff will, the pot life on it's fairly short. So I mix up a small batch here. I want to say somewhere in the 20 ounce range. Mix it up, and then I pour it over, saturate my roller, get it good and loaded and ready to go. And you see me do my first batch here. Now you see it's pretty runny and liquid, and so it took me a while to figure out how much to load onto the roller to make sure that it wasn't going to run off and drip product. But once you figure it out, this is a very easy product to work with. And you roll it out and you kind of figure out how much pressure you need to keep the thing from skating and smoothing. Again, this is going to be a trial and error process, but that's why I started with the hood, because it's a good flat, mostly flat panel that I had horizontal, so I could get good, overhead view of it and get the product to sit as flat as possible. Had I started on the fenders, of the vehicle, the upright fenders, you'll see me waste a bunch of product over there later in the video anyways, but had that been my first, I probably would have dropped, a few more ounces of product onto the ground than I needed to. But all in all, very easy and smooth application here. You see it going on and laying down pretty even on this first coat, and you're going to need to go back over this, a couple times. And so, this is patience is the name of the game here. So you see me roll now to this fender, and you just watched it splash down the fender, and I'm trying to catch it there at the bottom because I overloaded my roller, but I was able to get to most of it and kind of even it out. And so as you go back and, like I said, get a feel for this product, you're going to figure out, okay, I can load my roller with this much, that'll allow this much drip, I'll catch it. Sometimes the drip was a good thing. Like I'm trying to get a good saturation into those body lines down low that I just couldn't quite get into with the roller. I was letting some of my drip get down there and fill some of those body lines as well. But I think I talk about this later, right? I didn't mask anything off here because there were some areas I just knew I was not going to go after. I was going after the big panels here, and I was going to come in. The plan is later with my spray and hit the areas I can't really get to. And so, again, in real time, this is going very quickly. I was very happy with how quick the coverage on this product was laying down. And, again, it comes down to brush technique and how careful you are with that, how many times you got to go back over this. But it's something you learn the more you go with this product. And I think I figured it out about midway through that door, exactly how much pressure I need to put on these vertical panels. Okay, so we've got the first round of this done. So I was able to get 3 coats on this hood, and you can see it's still drying up, but it looks pretty good. There's some bubbling. I don't know if we can catch it here. You might be able to catch it in light. Yeah, you can see the bubbling here as this is starting to settle. It was pretty smooth before I went back and put this last coat on, and so I'm thinking that'll probably level out. I hit these doors too because I had some left after I did the top, and so rather than waste it, but you can kind of see the difference in right there where it was cured. It's good and smooth as you look down it versus the hood that's still, I don't know if you can tell, got some bubbling to it. But with this product, you're gonna sand most of it away anyways, well, a good portion of it. And so that bubble is, to me, fine. You can see there's some areas I couldn't quite cover well, right? Like in these creases here in these body lines, I'm not super enthused with the coverage I've got there. You can see it better back here, right? So this right here, I'm gonna come back in with that aerosol spray and hit all these places and tape off the handles and everything, because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to get the roller down in there, so I didn't even worry about taping these off yet. I'll tape them off and go back and hit it. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the coverage. I would say if you don't have access to a sprayer, this is a great alternative for certainly for your primer work. Now my floor is messy. You can see I spilt all over the place. As you're learning to get the hang of how much you need to load onto the roller, it did kind of drip down and go on the floor and hit a few places. But once you figure out the trick of how much to load and how to catch it and work it, it becomes a lot easier. Let's see if I can climb up on this and get a shot of the top. So yeah, that's still drying up, but yeah, overall, like I said, I'll come back in here where I couldn't quite get it in these drip rails. I'll come back with the aerosol primer and hit that, and then same thing with this up here and the grill and everything. But this knocks out, I would say, probably 80% of your workload. If you're gonna be doing this, 80-85% can be done with this roller. And then you come back in, like this would be very difficult to do with a roller. So again, I didn't even try up here. I'm gonna have to back tape and everything to get this. So I didn't even attempt anything this complex with the roller because it just doesn't make sense to me. I've got aerosols, I'll spray it. And then I'll go back in and hit all these areas where, it's a little bit of weak coverage. But like I said, it's, I forget, I don't know what time it is right now. I would figure I'm probably somewhere into the 2-hour range in this. and I've got the body mostly in primer. Again, door jambs are gonna get aerosoled, so don't worry about that. But those are places where I just didn't feel like fighting a roller to try to get it clean. And so I'll go back and I'll tape and I will shoot. But that's the initial run in primer. So now what happens is you can see like low spots here. Since this is an epoxy primer, this is what you put on when you're gonna do your body work. And so I'm gonna go through, I've got the guide coat back in there. I'll spray this with an initial guide coat. I mean, there's some places you can like see with the naked eye that I'm gonna need to fill and skim coat. And so I'll just take care of those before I do any sanding. But then I'll put the guide coat on and we'll start hitting it and knocking it down and seeing where we're at. But now it's just hours and hours and hours of sanding. And so I think, like I said, I would recommend this OptiFlow system. If you do not have access to a spray booth or you don't want to try to convert your garage just to get it into primer, do this. I'll let you know how it sands. I'm gonna let this set up. Maybe I'll include it in this video, maybe I won't, because I don't know when I'm gonna get a chance to get out here and start block sanding on this, but because it's so hot and humid out here. That's the other thing. They want it to be 75 to 80 degrees, and I think less than 50% humidity. But unless I was gonna wait until November here in the South, that was not gonna happen. And so this was curing very quickly. And so you gotta be able to move. They say only mix about 20 ounces at a time, and what you can do in 20 minutes. And that's about right. About 20 minutes, it would just start to solidify and evaporate. And so that feels about right to me. So work in smaller batches, you can always mix more. But it sucks to have this product kind of go away. Speaking of, I went through, I don't know if I've already said this, I went through about a gallon of the product. So a half gallon of the primer and a half gallon of reducer for a total of 1 gallon of product done so far. And so I have plenty left for when I pop through, and inevitably I'm gonna hit metal again as I'm sanding. So I have plenty left to go back through with a second coat on this once I do hit those high spots and have to knock those down. And so happy with the purchase, happy with this product so far. Like I said, I'll let you know how it sands. And like I said, if I don't include that in this video, then it will definitely be in the next one before I get ready to do the body filler and epoxy, urethane primer and everything like that. So maybe goodbye for now, but we'll see if I edit this in. But if not, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around.